The SP 500 and the Nasdaq 100 exactly what we're covering here in this video. We're going to go very in-depth about what you need to be watching on the day and going into tomorrow. We had some pretty influential stuff happen on the day also. You can see here as we look at SPY, you can see we were holding this lower range around the 400 marker roughly on SPY, declining down. But what I will say, the reason why you dropped was not because of technicals, was not because of any real fundamentals. It was all because of this right here. You have a supposed, this title, so you know, it has been changed like 5 times from this news article. Russian missile crossed into Poland, killing 2. If you don't know, Poland is a part of NATO. And now Zelensky and group are basically pushing America to go into Article 5, which basically says they will, enter a war and go against Russia. Now, the Pentagon says they do not have evidence and they cannot confirm nor deny this. However, there's other parts of the US that are saying that they can confirm that it was not from Russians. So this is kind of like a sticky area of where we are, and we don't really know what's going to happen from this. But it's worth mentioning. You dropped right down to our massive level, 395, and you bounced back instantly. So I'm going to talk about what we need to be looking for, what to expect going into tomorrow, and everything in between. Before we get into that, I ask you to consider doing 2 things: liking and subscribing. Every single day I make videos for you, so you are prepared and you know what to expect on the market, like we've been doing for the past over 7 months here on the channel, specifically on the indexes. So it's good to have you. Thanks for coming. Let's get into this. So we're going to look specifically here at what's happening with the SPY. And before we get too far into this, I do want to talk about the big indexes, and then I'm going to show you the SPY and Qs. So when we look at Nasdaq, let's look at exactly where we are. And if you don't believe these ranges that we have drawn, then I recommend following Twitter because you can see all these drawings as they go out. I post all my charts for free on there. But if you are interested, so you know, the Discord link is also down below, so you can see all the trades, get involved with the community, everything like that. So that's things to be looking forward to also. So I recommend definitely getting on Twitter if you can. Now, if you look, this was our previous supply. We've broken out of this. Really, you should be marking this up a little bit higher because now our demand is going to be locally down here, which we'll cover here in a sec. But the main thing I want to talk about is ultimately where we went, because we're always talking about where we're at and where we're going. Okay, so about, I believe on Sunday, I tweeted out so you could all see this, around the 12,050 all the way to 12,150 was our supply. We came right into that range and then got rejected. That did happen right at market open or near pre-market, so it's worth mentioning. And then you drop down, obviously, as you look at the chart. So I want to highlight where we're at first. You can see we came up, came back down, hit this demand, bounced back up. Okay, we're going back and forth, back and forth. Looking at ES, we also know the Nasdaq is one of the lagging indexes behind against the ES and the Dow. If we look here, I don't even have demand levels drawn out for ES or supply levels right now, but you can see our previous, going back right here, our previous supply is holding up, and we're really just monitoring and following the key levels, which was your previous high right here, 39.62. You're holding it clear as day here, and then this top line around 40.29, which you're getting rejected at, right? These were our 2 targets. Again, go watch previous videos. Target 1, you hit, came back down, pushing back up right now. 4,100 is roughly the next range, around 40.90 also. Those are 2 areas you got to be watching. Now, a big question is going in specifically to SPY. That's what a lot of people ask about. And I want to talk about this a little bit in detail because, again, I know a lot of you are on Twitter or social media and you're kind of being clouded with a lot of this information. So I just want to cover where we're at specifically. I'm going to go to the 15-minute chart so you can see. If we look here, I'm going to take this off because it's not a key level. If we look at this, it's this 395 region. And again, I showed y'all that I switched over to Flow Algo, and this is going to give you a really good look. We're going to look at a few things. We're going to look at dark pool data, and then we're also going to look at these equity levels. So a really cool thing with Flow Algo, and again, I'm not sponsored by them, and they're a really expensive tool. If you're interested, again, I recommend just staying here on YouTube because I'll post a lot of this information for free for you. And I'm also working on integrating a bot from Flow Algo into the Discord also, so people don't have to pay the crazy rates. But if we come in here, basically what this is you can set your time range. So I just did the past 2 years, 2020 till now, haven't updated this at all. and it's going to show you the overall strength based on volume, okay? And what it's going to show you is the percent of the average volume. And this percent represents your average volume on SPY. Okay, so you're getting 8% of your average volume at this level, right? So this just represents when buyers or sellers come into the market, or that amount of liquidity comes in at these levels based on the average volume. And you can see we'll go down. We have big levels, 458 to 458 levels, pretty massive. You can see there's actually levels surrounding that level also. 450, we have some 440 levels, other levels you can see. But the only level that caps out at 100, which indicates this is where the most liquidity, almost 40% of your total average liquidity comes into this level, right? And it's this 395.8, 395 level. I want to highlight the importance of this and why this matters. We're going to go back to the chart in a sec, but just look. And I love giving different visuals so people can see why volume is king. People like to use the MACD, the RSI, all these crazy indicators. Throw those out the window, people. All that really matters is supply and demand, which if you don't really know how to use it, then volume's your next best guess to look at things. That's going to indicate when you need to buy, when you need to sell, if sellers are stepping in or if buyers are stepping in, right? Now, you're looking at this, you're like, Tyler, I don't get this. It's 395. We didn't hit 395. Well, actually, we did hit 395 later in the day, but these all showed up earlier. Now, a key thing with dark pool data, and if you're looking at things from overseas, and they do a really good job of explaining it here on Flow also, but you should look into it. Again, do your own DD. Don't just take this as gospel or it has to be true. I recommend questioning everything you hear online, specifically about the financial markets. Like, why would you trust just anyone online, including me? You have no idea about my credentials. You can't really trust if I actually went to college. You can't do that. So I recommend always doing your own research. But if we look at this information, where did all this liquidity step in? 395, 395, 395. Massive amounts of liquidity. This is not options. This is pure stock orders coming in. Massive orders across the board, right? You had a few at 400, 398. But for the biggest part, it was these huge orders, specifically at 395, right? This is data pulled from yesterday. Dark pool data typically comes in a day late because you have to report it on the day of, but you can wait till the end of the day to report it. So if you report at the end of the day, it might not show up till the next day, or it might take a little bit of time. And so if we're looking at this information, look what happens when we look at SPY. Remember I talked about this yesterday. We ended right here. So we couldn't necessarily come out of the gates and say, oh, we're bearish, we're going down, because you ended at your support. You ended at a perfect level. We can look what happened here last time. You struggled, came down, got over, retested 395, and then pushed up. Now look what happened. You came down, sat at 395. Next day, you gapped up to 401, came back down, hit this on news that we possibly might be going to war based on what happened in Poland. I mean, that's very bearish news. You hold up here, and if you look at the volume on the day, this is when a bulk of your volume came in again. So I'd be willing to bet, again, if you come back tomorrow, again, I'm going to pull this data for you so you can see, I'd be willing to bet you had a massive amount of liquidity being added to the book and buyers stepping in right there. So looking at this just from a chart perspective, I just want to indicate how big these levels are, right? Even without having Flow, we already have this level marked on the charts, and it was all based on supply and demand, right? Because the biggest thing here when you're looking at supply and demand, and maybe this is a little bit of a rant, but when you're looking at charts and you're using indicators, I just want you to take a second and think for yourself. If you're looking at them, really consider what's happening at these levels. If you're using the MACD, it's not taking into account volume, buyers, or sellers. If you're using RSI, it's not doing that either, right? It's not factoring in the actual volume. It's just factoring in how the candlesticks moved. So there's a lot of variables that you're missing there. But if we come and we look at something like the daily time frame here, I just want to show you how good this chart actually looks on a large time frame, right? You can see we broke above. You had an almost inverted hammer, and then you mount up. This is pretty decent. I'm just going to tell you right now. It's a pretty good close on the day for SPY. It looks good. And if we didn't have the concern of some of the data coming out this week, and then also, possibly going to war now, I would say it would almost be guaranteed that we test our next supply. But I'm not going to say it's guaranteed because that would just be really dangerous and dumb to say because I know you guys would all attack me, right? But I'm just saying, based on this hold where you're at, it looks like you want to come test the next supply. I'm just going to tell you right now. It looks really good, right? So I want to make that really clear right now. Just take a quick zoom out, look at where we're at, and look at how you're moving. I mean, it looks great. You're holding that level extremely strong. You have to love it. Now, when we look at something like Qs, I do think it's a little bit uglier. It's not as pretty of a chart, and you can actually see this is not a quote-unquote supply. You'd actually have to consider your supply about right here, locally on Qs, but that's the danger. There's a disconnection between Qs and SPY, but you're actually getting rejected there so far. But if we look at something like NQ, and if we look here on Qs, you can actually see you're mounted above your previous high, which still looks good. I do want to highlight that. But if we go to NQ, it looks a little bit better here. You can still see you came up to the target like we anticipated, but you're still sitting above, 11.8 and ultimately 11.9 right now. So that's where I'm looking right now. I still think you look okay. I still think you look good. And there's no reason for me right now to be going short. Now, I did a live earlier on the channel, and I will be doing a live tomorrow at around 12 or noon Central Time. I will be live, and I'll have a guest so maybe going over some charts. So make sure you tune in on the channel. That live will not be saved on the channel either. So make sure you're there. So if we look at this, I had a lot of people asking me on the live today, and I'm trying to do these more often. Am I going short? Am I looking for puts? Am I looking for this? Am I looking for that? And this all comes back down to SPY. And I want to be really clear about this. SPY has given you no reason to go short. And in almost every time frame I'm looking at, there's no reason to go short specifically on SPY. If we look here on the 4 hour, you're mounting, you're holding, okay? You're above your resistance, you're mounted above it, buy or step in every time you touch it. Therefore, for SPY, there's no reason for me to go short. Why? Because my target has got to be 395 to the short side. And if we look to the upside, you have to target at least 403 and then next up around 410. So therefore, my risk to reward tells me that the upside is potentially the trade right now. Now, am I saying I'm going long here? No, that's not what I'm saying. I'm just saying I'm not going short at all, because every time you get pushed down, you get bought right back up. So if you flip 395, I could get back on board of being a bear. But until then, I have to remain a bull in these short-term thesis, okay? So I want to make that really clear here. Now, if this stuff over here, flip the Polish stuff and everything happened in Poland with the missiles, then I want to say I will probably flip the thesis and I will turn pretty bearish. If this turns out that a Russian actually sent this over, I will be extremely bearish. But I want to tell you right now why I'm not bearish. A quick Google search will tell you that we're in current peace talks with China. This literally is less than a day old, okay? I want to make this really, really clear, right? I mean, I covered it on Twitter. I don't know what else to say. I'll have this link down below. But basically, Biden met with President Xi, which again, another dictator, so we can't trust too much of what he says. But I want to say this. He says literally the day before this all happens, right? Literally says, we'll speak to Russia about possible peace negotiations. Russia actually, so far, if we look at what's really happening down there, they've met their goals. And again, I've been pretty proactive in believing that Russia's crazy here, and I think we can't really trust anything they say. But you have to understand what's being said here. Russia got the countries they want. They basically annexed them, and they're retreating like they're half their army, right? And after we had peace talks of this, and they had some crazy statements regarding Taiwan, a day later, a missile goes off and kills 2 people in Poland, which is a NATO territory. Wow, it just seems strangely timed. And then immediately after this, if you're looking at my Twitter channel, also, I want to really make this clear. Within no time at all, you have Zelensky telling everyone, missiles are hitting NATO territory. There's a Russian missile attack against our collective security. Everyone needs to act now. Ignore evidence. Don't do research. Okay? The end. This is dangerous territory, and you have to understand everything that's happening all at once. I'm not trying to be a conspiracy theorist, but I want people to understand what's happening, and it's all really, really weird timing for me specifically. So if I'm looking at the markets, I'm not overly bearish until we get confirmation on some of this Russian stuff. If it comes out that Russia did it, then I'm bearish, flat out. I need hard evidence from the U.S. government. I need them to say Russia did it. Preferably Biden. It would be the best case scenario. But anyone from the U.S. government to say it, that'd be awesome. Then I flip to bearish. Until then, you're bullish because you keep getting good data. Yesterday, PPI, good data. We look at Walmart. We had some earnings, good earnings. The trend is continuing to this Fed pivot, okay? I'm just saying right now, everything is pointing towards the Fed pivot. Now, if you don't believe it's going to happen, it doesn't matter. Even I kind of don't believe a Fed pivot's going to happen. But you have to look at the short-term market based on what it's giving you. And right now, I believe based on the SPY, based on the Qs, based on Nasdaq, based on Dow, based on everything happening, it's telling you the upside is the most likely scenario right now. And until you can break through some of these supports, I don't see a reason to go to the downside. Again, the downside thesis is extremely clear. You break below 395 and hold on any time frame, like the 1 hour, maybe even the 30 minutes, then we can talk about being bearish. But you're not. Buyers continue to hold this up. And the only reason you dropped was not because of technicals, wasn't because of anything. You dropped because of the missile news, and then you bounced right back. You literally bounced back to 399, 400 within an hour and a half. It's worth mentioning. No one's going to talk about it. No one's going to be straight up about it, but it's the fact of the matter. And if you look at where a bulk of this volume came in, it came in during the buy side. That's when the volume really increased. You had about 6-7 million in this hour, and then you had almost 40 million on the way back up. I'm just saying, writing's on the wall, super clear based on what we talk about, supply and demand and volume. Buyers are still in control until you lose 395. If you lose 395, we can talk about being concerned. We can talk about being bearish. But until then, please do not ask me if I'm going short, because the answer is no. There is no desire in me to go short right now. I'd rather sit on my hands and not trade anything than go short. You know what's better than taking a stupid trade? Not taking a trade. You won't even lose money if you don't take a trade. There's no reason to force your way into these trades, people. Okay? Be calm, be collected. Let this trade action come to you, because I'm telling you, again, I've gone over the portfolio. I'm going to go over it again at the end of this month also, so everyone can see what we're doing here. But I want to highlight where you're at and how good you still look. You're holding 395, and again, that's the trade plan ultimate here. You lose 395, we can talk about being bearish. Now, as we move up, obviously, the support range is going to adjust, but for right now, 395 is the line in the sand. Don't even question it. That's the big talks here. Now, a few stocks I do want to mention. One, I want to talk about Netflix. If we continue this upside movement, I think Netflix has incredible room to run. We're going to look really quickly here at the 1 hour time frame so you can see, so you know I'm not lying to you. Actually, running with the 4 hour. We look here. You have a gap fill coming in up at 330 roughly. Great volume on the day. Really good buyer stepping in. You saw some puts coming in also near the end of the day. I believe that was kind of hedge your position after like the war stuff, but that's just my personal opinion. See what happens after there. Next up, DWAC. A lot of interesting stuff coming out of here. Trump is supposed to be speaking tonight, making some type of an announcement. It's all over Twitter. You can go look for it. I would definitely be interested in watching this. If this thing gets above $33, I think you're going to start seeing options rolling over and short start to cover a little bit here. I think you could potentially run to $45 in a hurry. Keep it on your radar. If he doesn't announce, then it's probably just going to drop, to be honest. I'm not going to lie to you. Next up, RTX and LMT, Lockheed Martin. I think these have great potential. I talked about these yesterday a little bit. They look like they had some downside, but you can see how they're starting to hold this local bottom down here. I do like this for these stocks. Again, RTX, I think you're targeting 99 to 100. It's one of the few Dow stocks that has not hit local highs or all-time highs yet. You can actually see RTX is still down. If you look at something like LMT, I mean, this was its all-time high right here, 495. You're down right now. So I want to highlight, it still looks good. RTX is a better play in my opinion. Definitely has my interest. Now, we actually ended up hitting some targets on Tesla for the day. We ended up hitting that 200 level. Again, mentioned it yesterday. We want to see Tesla get above 200 now. I think if you're looking at Tesla, you need to see it get above 200 and you're targeting 206. Until then, it's going to be a chop fest in here. I wouldn't be too interested or even like it that much. Next up, AMD. The semiconductor sector is killing it. If you don't know, Warren Buffett bought some TSM yesterday. So I definitely think this sector has some room, and I think it could get some love here. If you look at really what's happening here, I do want to highlight really quick. This is your supply zone. You invalidated it, you popped above it. I do like that. That is promising. I want to highlight that. You're looking for support now, in my opinion, at your previous highs you had established right there, around 74.5. If you can stay above 74.5, I think you are going to be working towards 81.5 and then going all the way up to 83 to 84. Also with NVIDIA, a similar play. Love it. You look really good. You have upside all the way up to 177. You're at 166 right now. I believe you need to break above 172. That's a key level we do have marked out there. I would be watching this out. I still love NVIDIA. It's one of the better plays out here. It's very strong, one of the strongest stocks on the entire market. Again, semiconductors are a very strong sector. But again, I'm not looking to trade any of this unless we get continuation on NQ. And I believe you're going to get some answers, a lot of answers early in the morning. Again, so I can't even talk about potential trades or doing too much right now because you need to wait and see what we get from confirmation with this Russia news. Because I guarantee you, if the Russian news gets confirmed that it was not Russia, if it is confirmed, I guarantee we're going to look really bullish going into tomorrow. But it's worth mentioning, Thursday, we had jobs report and jobs data. So keep your head on a swivel. That's a lot of big stuff coming in. I'll have you updated. Again, not as many trades so far this week, but you still are getting some opportunities. And you need to be patient right now and not force your way into some of these crazy trades. See you tomorrow.